Hi, and welcome to part 4 of Girls in Love by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from 8 till late. Dear Dan, I'm ever so sorry, but you really can't come and stay at my home. I did ask, but Anna, my stepmother, won't allow it. I don't think you realised this on holiday, but she's really strict, and right at the moment she's dead annoyed with me because she found out that I went to this amazing club with a serious reputation. So now I'm grounded for the rest of the term, and she says I can't have anyone at all to stay. So I'm afraid it really will be Christmas at the cottages before we see each other again. I do hope you understand and don't feel too mad at me. Ellie. My tongue is black all over. It's a wonder it hasn't cracked at the roots and crumbled into cinders in my mouth. I feel so mean saying all that stuff about Anna. She's been really super to me, and she's never said anything about the night of Magda's party. I came home from Magda's as good as gold on Sunday and said we'd just had this super birthday meal that had lasted practically all evening. But when I kicked off my killer shoes, Anna saw my tights were all holes because I've been dancing so much. She's been an absolute sport, and it's especially unfair for me to say she won't let anyone come and stay, because next weekend she's letting Magda and Nadine stay over Friday night. We're all going to Stacey's birthday party. It's going to be great if everyone starts celebrating their birthdays in style. We'll be raving right through the year. Not that Stacey's party is going to be a rave. We wondered why on earth she'd asked us to her party because she's not our particular friend. We hardly know her. But it turns out she's asked the entire form, and a lot of girls in year 9 and the other forms too. My mum and dad are hiring the hall at the community centre, and there's going to be a disco and a finger buffet, and we've got an extension, so it's going to be 8 till late. Stacey burbles. Wow, says Magda, but Stacey doesn't twig she's being sarcastic and just grins gratefully. Yeah, isn't it fabulous? Well, see you there, you three. We're really looking forward to it. Not, says Magda, the minute Stacey's back is turned. Shut up, she'll hear, I say. I always feel much more worried about damply enthusiastic girls like Stacey, who are so terribly uncool. If I didn't hang around with Magda and Nadine and try really hard to be hip, I could so easily be one myself. But Magda can be caring too. She's looking at Nadine, who hasn't said a word. She's barely spoken since the 7th heaven night, when she walked out on Liam. She just drifts around after us, like this pale little ghost. The purple marks are fading on her neck, but it's going to take her much longer to get him to fade from her mind. Oh, I don't know, Stacey's party could be a laugh, I suppose, says Magda. We could stick together, us three, and have a bit of a bop. I quite fancy a girls' night out, okay? Okay, I say, right, Nadine? I have to nudge her twice before she nods, but it turns out it isn't going to be a girls' night out at all. You can bring a boy, Stacey announces. My boyfriend Paul is coming. This is going to be a proper party. I like improper parties, says Magda. I can't come then, says Nadine. Haven't got a boy. Not any more. Oh, don't go all droopy again, babes. I can't bear it, says Magda. Of course you're coming. Yeah, with me. I haven't got a boy to bring either, have I say, seeing as my Dan is stuck up in Manchester. I can always ask Greg to bring along 2 of his mates, says Magda. No way, not again, I say very firmly indeed. Turns out Greg won't agree to go to Stacey's party. Magda can't believe it. The nerve of it! He says he won't go to a stupid year 9 baby birthday party because his mates would give him stick about it if they found out. After he made me go to that night of ultimate embarrassment at that nerdy Adams place. I told him where to get off, or words to that effect. Magda grins. So now I haven't got a boy either, Nadine. We're a right pathetic trio. 1 totally absent boyfriend and 2 exes. Well, we'll go to Stacey's party, just the 3 of us, like we planned originally. Let's make it a real girls' night out, I say. You 2 come back to my place and sleep over afterwards, yeah? Magda agrees enthusiastically. Nadine doesn't look as if she agrees at all, but she can't summon up the energy to argue. I am seriously worried about Nadine, Magda whispers to me in class. Ellie, how far did that Liam get with her? I'm not sure. I know he made her do all sorts of stuff, but I'm not sure about actual sex. You don't think she couldn't be pregnant, could she? Oh, Magda, she looks so pale. Well, she's always pale. Yes, but now she looks like death, and she's so droopy. That's because she's missing Liam. How can she know? Now she knows the truth about that creep. Maybe she's missing him even so. What? Look, I don't get all the moping around lark. I've just given up on Greg, and yet I'm not an old droopy drawers. Yes, but you were never really that gone on Greg, were you? How do you know Greg wasn't the love of my life, the passion of my girlhood, the flame of my bosom, the fire of my loins? We are both shrieking with laughter by this time. The Dean stares over at us, but she doesn't even ask what we're laughing at. I look at her tense white face and the dark circles under her eyes. I start to get scared. Could Magda really be right? What if Liam has got Nadine pregnant, just like that other girl? I know there isn't any point asking her outright, not at school. I'll have to talk to her privately, without Magda. So, after tea this evening, I tell Anna I need to borrow a textbook for homework off Nadine. Anna's in a bit of a flap herself because Dad's late home again. He'll be in a meeting, or helping some student with a project, I say. Don't worry, Anna. I'm sure he's not. He'll be in any minute, you'll see. I feel mean leaving her, but I have to go around to Nadine's. Nadine's mum's asked me how I am, and her dad calls me Curly Knob as always, but there's something guarded about their welcome. Natasha is her usual prancy, poisonous self. Hi, Ellie. Look, do you like my new knickers? They've got frills, see? I can't help seeing, and she's got her dress hoiked up to her waist. Why are all little kids such exhibitionists? If we carry on like that, we get locked up, and yet we're the ones who are meant to be sex mad. Natasha, darling, says her mum fondly. Where's your brother Eggs then, Ellie? Why didn't you bring him around to play with me? I like Eggs, Natasha gushes, making her eyebrows wiggle. You little saucepot, says her dad, pretending to smack her frilly bottom. Nadine says nothing at all through all this. She still stays hunched on the sofa, barely looking at me. Nadine, aren't you going to offer Ellie a drink of Coke or juice or anything? Her mum hisses. It's okay, thanks. I've only just had my tea. I've really just popped over to borrow that history book for homework, Nadine, I say awkwardly. Nadine stares at me, as we don't even have history homework this week. Let's go to your bedroom, I say. Nadine gets to her feet, like it's a huge, great effort. For heaven's sake, buck yourself up, Nadine, says her mum. Then she looks at me. I'm sorry, Ellie, but I'm really going to have to stop Nadine going out with you and Magda so much. I think you girls must stay awake half the night when you're sleeping over at each other's houses. Nadine's been like a limp rag just recently, and it's really not good enough. Just look at the state of her. Yes, I know, I'm sorry, I mumble. When we're out in the hall, Nadine raises her eyebrows apologetically for using me as an alibi. I follow her upstairs. The midnight tone of her black walls and gentle spiral of her hanging crystals make her room a soothing bolt hole from the aggressive rose wallpaper and pink Axminster on the landing. Nadine flops down on her bed. I sit beside her, fingering her black quilt. She's sewn it with silver stars. Nadine, I delicately trace the star shapes with my finger, trying to get up the courage to come out with it. What? Nadie, look, I wanted to see you, just you and me, to ask how you are. You can see how I am, says Nadine, turning on her side. Well, I know you're feeling pretty fed up. That's the understatement of the century. I'm sorry, I'm making a muck of this. It's just, oh Nadine, I can't stand to see you like this. We thought, Magda and me, that maybe what? I wish you and Magda would quit discussing me. Aren't you both happy now? Nadine says bitterly. You can both say I told you so because you've been right all along about Liam, and I've made an utter fool of myself. Oh, Nad, we don't think that. It's just you said you did all this stuff with Liam, and I couldn't stop wondering. Well, if you went the whole way with him, and if you could possibly... I lower my head so I'm whispering right into her ear. Possibly be pregnant? Nadine lies still for a moment. I hold my breath. Then she looks up. Her eyelashes are spiky with tears. No, she says. No, I didn't. And no, I'm not. I wanted to, just to show Liam how much I love him. But whenever he tried to, I was suddenly too scared, and I went so tense we couldn't. So he said I was frigid. Oh, for God's sake, Nadine, that's the oldest and dirtiest trick in the book. I know, but I just wanted to please him. So on Saturday he gave me this stuff to relax me. We were going to go to his mate's place afterwards, where we could have a proper bed, because Liam thought it was maybe doing it out in the open that was bugging me. But then you and Magda came over, and then I heard those girls. Well, I know it must be awful for you, but at least you know what he's really like now. But I got to thinking, I mean, what if those girls were talking about some other Liam? You have to be joking. They saw him. You're one. Or maybe they were making it all up because they were jealous because they wanted him themselves. Nadine, you can't believe this crap. Well, that's what I started telling myself, so I thought I ought to see Liam just to find out. No! And so yesterday after school I went looking for him, and when I found him with a whole crowd outside the video shop, he wouldn't even speak to me properly. He just said he never wanted to see me again after walking out on him like that in seventh heaven. He said I was a tight bitch, so cold that going with me would be like bonking a bag of bird's-eye frozen peas. And all his mates laughed, and this girl started hanging on his arm and cuddling up to him and sneering at me. Oh, Nadie, Nadie. I put my arms around her and held her tight. Don't tell Magda, will you? I swear I won't. I feel so stupid and ashamed. He was so awful to me, and yet I still feel I love him. Do you think I'm completely nuts, Ellie? No, of course not. It's him who's the really vicious nutter. I wish it wasn't all such a mess. If only I had someone who really loved me back, someone romantic, someone like your Dan, writing to you all the time. I take a deep breath. Nadine. About Dan. Nadine looks up at me. What about him? I open my mouth. The words are there, buzzing in my brain. I just have to trigger my tongue into action. Say it, Ellie. Say it. I made him up. I say it so quickly it comes as one weird word. Imidubup. Nadine blinks, not quite getting it at first. Then, Ellie, you made him up. Well, sort of. There was this boy on holiday, but he wasn't. And then there was this gorgeous guy, and he did talk to me once, but he's not called Dan. The other one is. What are you on about? I don't know. It's all a muddle. The thing is, my Dan isn't mine, and he's not even called Dan. So if there's anyone who's completely nuts, it's me, saying all this stupid stuff about a boyfriend when I've never ever had one. Not a proper one, anyway. I just can't get my head around this. I did wonder, just at first, but you were so convincing. Hey, have you told Magda? No, I couldn't bear it if she knew. She'd have such a laugh at me. You won't tell her, will you, Nad? I promise I won't. Oh, God, Ellie, we're a right pair, aren't we? You're telling me. We're a right pair. You're telling me. You're telling. We're laughing so much we can hardly speak. It's an age-old routine we used to spout when we were about 7, and it wasn't really funny then, but it feels so good to giggle like crazy. We both roll on the bed, helpless, and we're truly back to being best ever friends. Nadine's still dead depressed about Liam, of course, but she's not in quite such a zombie trance. I tell Magda there are no worries on the pregnancy front. You're sure, Ellie? Positive. They never actually did it. Well, at least that's something, though it still beats me how Nadine can have been mad enough to go with a guy like that. Well, we all do crazy things sometimes, Magda, I say uncomfortably. Let's stop going on about it, eh? Magda is happy enough to change the subject because she's found out that Stacey has this older brother Charles who's going to be keeping an eye on things at the party, and apparently he's really quite tasty looking with blonde hair. How old, I ask. About 18, according to Amna. She's been to Stacey's house for tea. Stacey's got big brown eyes. Are his eyes brown by any chance, I say, though I know it's a chance in a million. Well, there aren't a million people who live in our town. 10,000? But that's everybody. How many halfway good-looking boys of 18 are there? The odds are whittling downwards. 1,000 to 1? Maybe even 100 to 1. I don't know about his eyes, Ellie. You'll be asking me for his inside leg measurement next. Ask Amna. Ask Stacey. I'd feel a right fool asking Stacey about her brother's eyes. I decide I'll just have to wait and see for myself. Of course, he might not even deign to come to this party, but it's getting quite famous now, and all sorts of extra people are going. A whole crowd of year 10s who go to Stacey's dance class are going to be there, and several of them are going out with year 11 boys. Greg is waiting for Magda after school. What do you want, she says, linking in with me and Nadine. Greg scurries along behind us. About this old party on Friday night, Magda, he puffs. Hey, wait a minute, I want to talk to you. Well, I don't want to waste my breath on you, Greg, so why don't you just push off? Magda sings over her shoulder. Don't be like that. Look, I've changed my mind. I'll go to the party with you. Magda, okay? That's what you wanted, isn't it? Magda sighs, and she stops. That was what I wanted. God knows why. It's certainly not what I want now. I'm going to the party with my girlfriends. Right, girls? Magda smiles at us. We smile back, and the three of us walk on, still linked. There's a pause. Well, see if I care, Greg yells. He's obviously trying hard to come up with something ultra-crushing. You girls, you're just a lot of lezzies. We burst out laughing. Poor Greg. He's history, says Magda. I like the sound of this Charles. I just have a feeling. Maybe Stacey's party is going to be a key event in our lives, even though we started off thinking it the naffest non-event of the year. Maybe we'll all have a dream encounter there. Are you listening, Nadine? And maybe you'll meet your dream guy too, Ellie? Or are you too involved with Dan to be interested? I hesitate. I don't dare look at Nadine. I mumble something about always being interested and then change the subject as quickly as I can. But as the three of us get ready round at my place to go to Stacey's party on Friday evening, I can't help hoping that Magda is right. Maybe Stacey's brother might just be my dream Dan. I haven't caught a glimpse of him since he said, "See you." Please, let me see him tonight, I say over and over again inside my head as I put on my new shirt and skirt and the killer shoes. I think I look pretty cool, but when I see Magda I feel depressed. She's wearing a brand new raunchy red number, and she's got this new glossy red lipstick that makes her mouth incredible, and a shiny scarlet Cupid's bow. Want to borrow my lipstick, Ellie? She says. I have a go, but my lips are too big and my face too fat. I look like a little girl who's been at the strawberry jam. I sigh and rub it off and start again. What about you, Nadine? Want to add a bit of colour to your old chops? Says Magda. Colour, says Nadine, shuddering. She's powdered herself chalk white and outlined her eyes with kohl. Her own lipstick is such a dark purple, it looks black, and she's done her nails to match. She looks pretty stunning in a black skirt and a black lacy top and black pointy boots. Nice to see you looking your own deathly vampire self again, Nadine, I say. I wonder if the Dream Dan might go for Nadine's gothic glamour or Magda's sexy scarlet. It seems very, very, very unlikely that he'll plump for me instead. Plump being the operative word. But when we get to Stacey's party, her brother Charles doesn't go for any of us. He's not my Dream Dan. Well, I knew it would be way too much of a coincidence. He is pretty tasty, though, in a sort of floppy-haired, posy kind of way. Stacey is charging about in a flouncy fancy frock, shrieking and squeaking in batty birthday girl mode, so it's left to big brother Charles to welcome us free into the party and show us where to leave our jackets and stuff. So glad you could come, he says, smiling, looking at us with big blue eyes. Not as distinctive as brown, but pretty devastating all the same. I go all girly and Nadine manages a smile, and Magda is in total vamp mood, her red mouth wide open as if she's about to gobble him up. But then there's this other girl who comes up to us, also smiling. She's taller, older, even glossier than Magda's lipstick. Charles puts his arm around her. She's his girlfriend. Oh well, never mind. Let's hope there are plenty of other spare guys, says Magda, her eyes darting around the already crowded room. Honestly, I thought this was our big girls' night out, I say to Nadine. Look at Magda, eyes on stalks, desperate to pull. Oh well, I don't want to meet up with anyone, says Nadine. I don't want to go out with another boy for ages, if ever. Nadine looks much better, but it's obviously going to take months before she's completely over Liam. But at least she's been out with someone properly, even if he was a right pig. I feel so pathetic that the only boyfriend I've ever had is a pretend one. It's not such a bad party. The music is okay, and there's lots of fancy food and that red wine punch they always give you at teenage parties when they don't want you to get drunk. We have a glassful each, and then we have a dance, and then a laugh with some of the girls in our class. I suppose it's a good night out, but I can't help feeling depressed when I see that even Stacey has a reasonably good-looking boyfriend, and lots of the other girls are with their boys. And though they are a few spare boys, none of them so much as glances in my direction. They do quite a lot of glancing at Magda, of course, and Nadine gets her fair share of attention too. But there's no one here for me. No one interested in me. No one at all. Ellie, Stacey suddenly comes rushing over. Ellie, there's this boy. He says he knows you. He wants to come to the party. Do you know him? She points over to the door. I peer through the blurry lenses of my glasses, wondering if it could possibly somehow be my dream Dan. It is Dan. Not the dream one. The real Dan. 999. I stare at him. It can't be. It is. But how? I told him not to come. So what the hell is he doing here? How did he know where I was? He hasn't seen me yet. Oh no, he has. He's grinning, waving at me. What on earth, says Magda. Who is he, says Nadine. Everyone's looking, everyone's staring. Oh God, he looks worse than ever. His hair, it's not even a skinhead cut anymore. It's sticking straight up for 3 centimetres like he's permanently plugged into a live wire. And he's wearing a totally nerdy, huge white t-shirt with a silly message, and his jeans are showing his ankles. He's wearing ancient Woolies trainers. Oh, they squeak as he crosses the polished floor. Squeak, squeak, squeak at every step. Nearer, and everyone's still staring, whispering, giggling. Who is this Burke? Magda says, giving me a nudge. I don't know, I mutter madly. Hi, Ellie, Dan shouts above the disco music. Well, he knows you, says Nadine. Oh no, I say, and I turn desperate, wondering if I can make a run for it. Ellie, hey, wait, it's me, Dan. Dan, says Magda. Dan, says Nadine. How can it be Dan? You said you made him up. Well, this guy looks all too real, says Magda, giggling. He's your boyfriend, Ellie. No, I insist, but he's got to me now, trampling past everyone in his awful trainers, a silly grin still ear to ear. Hi, Ellie, surprise! He says as he lunges forward. I'm so terrified he's going to put his arms around me in front of everyone that I step back sharply and spear Stacey with one of my killer heels. She squeals. Dan's arms are stretched out. They stay empty, clutching at air. The grin fades from his face. He swallows. He doesn't know what to say, what to do, and everyone's still staring. He's going red right to the tips of his ears. They stick out so with his new silly haircut. His glasses are starting to steam up. His eyes look agonised. Oh, poor Dan. Hello, I say weakly. Meet my best friends, Magda and Nadine. They are still staring at him as if he's just arrived from planet Nightmare. This is my friend Dan, I say. Magda and Nadine give him a little nod, both struck dumb. So, what are you doing here, I say. I wanted to surprise you. I'd set it all up for this weekend, and even when you said your stepmom wouldn't stand for it, I thought I could maybe just turn up and sort of sweet talk her because I thought she was really nice on holiday. And she is nice. She said she didn't mind a bit if I stay the weekend, even though it's going to be a bit of a squash with your friends staying too, and your dad gave me a lift here, and so here I am. Yes, well, you've certainly surprised me, I say. Shocked, more like, says Dan. I hope you realise you've just about crippled me, Ellie, Stacey says, still rubbing her foot. I'm sorry. So is this your boyfriend? Stacey says, and her eyes are gleaming. No, I say. Yes, says Dan. Oh, God, Stacey isn't half enjoying this. So is everyone else. No one's even dancing now. They're stopped for the cabaret, the comic turn, Ellie and Dan. Well, is he or isn't he? Stacey persists. Dan's a boy, and Dan's a friend. That's it, I say. I look at Dan. Come and get a drink, eh? We walk over to the drinks table together. I go tock, tock, tock in my killer shoes. Dan goes squeak, squeak, squeak in his tatty trainers. Everyone's staring at us, Dan says. I know. This maybe wasn't such a good idea, says Dan. Well, I bet you're wishing I hadn't come. I'm showing you up in front of all your cool mates, says Dan. Don't be silly, I say, but I don't sound very convincing. You better kiss me quick, Dan says. What? Then I'll unzip my frog suit and step out of this hip, handsome prince, says Dan, running his fingers through the lethal stubble of his hair. He tugs at it ruefully. The new hairstyle doesn't help, does it? You said it, I say. Well, what are you going to drink? There's not much selection, actually. Coke or red wine punch. My favourite tipple, says Dan. I'll grab some sandwiches too. I'm starving. We drove straight down south. No stopping at any motorway cafe. I was just so desperate to see you. Oh, Dan. True, I might be the last boy on earth you want as a boyfriend, but I'd give anything for you to be my girlfriend. You look fantastic, Ellie. Rubbish. Look, I'm doing my best to be dead romantic, like Romeo and Juliet. Only if I came to serenade you at night, you'd come out on your balcony and tip a bucket of water all over me, right? Probably. I don't know. I'm a bit of a loss as to how to impress you. Travelling long distance to see you is a no-no. Sweet talk turns sour. There's not much point trying to dazzle you with my brawny body. He flexes his puny arm so that his baggy sleeve flaps. Did you say brawny or scrawny, I say. Cruel. Okay, Arnie Schwarzenegger can relax for the moment. So, what about my ready wit? Wit or twit? Ouch. God, you've got a wicked tongue. He raises his glass and drinks to me, and then shudders. What is this stuff? Tastes like undiluted Ribena. I think it's the key ingredient. Oh, well, I'll have another slug or 6 to get up some Dutch courage before I dare ask you to dance. Maybe it might be better to put that request on hold, I say. I'm proved right. Someone starts playing the naughty version of that old Alice song, and everyone starts dancing again. Come on, let's give it a go, says Dan. Major mistake. Dan has a whole new dance style all his own, bouncy bouncy in his squeaky squeaky trainers, with head nodding, arms whirling. One arm catches someone on the shoulder, another on the chest. Sorry, sorry, he shouts, and moves away from them, nearer me. He bounces again and lands straight on my killer shoes. Oh God, I'm sorry, Ellie. Have I hurt you? It's okay. I think I'm just crippled for life. But I'll get used to it, so maybe we'd better sit this one out. We sit at the side, sipping our drinks, watching the others. Magda and Nadine are dancing together. They glance in our direction rather a lot. Your friends are very striking girls, says Dan. I know. Nowhere near as striking as you, though. Come off it. You're supposed to simper sweetly when I pay you compliments. Simper or whimper. Look, you're the princess I released from the tower, right? You're meant to be in my thrall. In your what? Perhaps I'd better perform some other princely feat. Kill a dragon or two. Rescue you from a fate worse than death. I don't think there's a clamouring horde queuing up to ravage me right now, I say. As I say it, there's a sudden shout. Raised voices, stupid laughter, swearing. People stop dancing and turn and stare. There's a whole crowd of guys over by the door. Strangers with real skinhead haircuts and real tattoos and real cans of Tennent's in their hands. Stacey's brother and her boyfriend and some of the other boys are arguing with them, trying to get them to go. Nah, we're staying, right? We've come to join the party, have a little drinky, have a little dance, says the biggest boy, tipping his can. He looks around, staggering a little, obviously already out of his head. His mates follow him, egging him on. So which bird shall I pick, eh? Where's the bleeding birthday girl? Stacey bobs behind her boyfriend, her face white. The skinhead doesn't see her. There's only one girl not up on the dance floor. It's me. Hey, what are you sitting down for, darling? Little bit of a wallflower, are you? Come and dance with me, he says. I freeze. She's with me, says Dan. His voice is as squeaky as his trainers. You what? Says the skinhead. Who the hell are you, creep? Now, Come on, darling, dancey, dancey. He grabs me by the wrist and pulls me up. Whoa, up you get. She doesn't want to dance with you, says Dan. Yes, she does, don't you, darling, says the skinhead, hanging on to me. You come and have a little dance with me and my mates. Are you deaf or something? Dan says desperately. Dan, it's okay. Don't argue with him. I hiss because I'm so scared there might be a fight. They could have knives. There, she wants to dance, don't you, sweetheart? He says, and he puts his arms around me. His horribly beery breath hot on my cheek. That's it, let's get cosy, eh? He says, his hands on my bottom. Leave her alone, Dan shouts, jumping up. Shut him up, eh, Sandy? The skinhead says. The heaviest of his mates lumbers over to Dan. There's a thud, a squeal, and then Dan is sprawling on the floor. Dan! Shut up, or you'll get it too, says the skin. Did you pop him one, Sandy? Help! Dan screams, staggering up. His white t-shirt is stained dark red. He stabbed me. I'm bleeding, look! Screams echo right around the room as Dan lurches forward and then sinks to his knees. What you done now, Sandy? Quick, run for it! The skinhead yells, shoving me aside and taking to his heels. The others follow him. No one dares stop them. Dan, I say, bending down, clutching him, trying to prop his head on my knees. For God's sake, someone dial 999. Get an ambulance. It's okay, says Dan, trying to sit up. I don't need an ambulance. Are you crazy? You've been stabbed. No, I haven't, says Dan, grinning. Those thugs have gone, haven't they? I thought they might run for it if they thought I was bleeding to death. I don't think that guy even had a knife. He just punched me in the stomach and I fell over. But the blood. Smell it, says Dan, holding out his sopping t-shirt. Yuck. It's the wine punch. I spilled it all over me. Oh, you idiot. But then I think about it. Though it worked. They did go. That was real quick thinking, pal, says Charles. Could have got really nasty with those louts. Thank you so much, Dan. You saved my birthday party from being an absolute disaster, Stacey gushes. Yeah, well done, Dan. Great thinking. Really cool. Hear that, Ellie? I'm cool, says Dan. You're wet and sticky, I'll say that, I say, shifting him off my lap. Get up then, I don't want wine all over my new skirt. After I've seriously rescued you from a fate worse than death, I'm heartbroken. You were supposed to tell me you love me and beg me not to die, says Dan, gingerly getting to his feet and rubbing his stomach. Dream on, matey, I say, because I'm not going to say anything else in front of everyone. I wait till later, when there's just him and me in a corner, which is much, much later, because everyone keeps clustering around wanting to talk to Dan and congratulate him. Your head's going to be so swollen, you're never going to squeeze out of the door, I say. Just as well I've had my new haircut then, says Dan. You are a nut, I say, and I rub my hand over the bristles. But you're a brave nut. You stuck up for me when they were really scary blokes. They'll be pretty scared themselves, thinking they murdered me, says Dan. I hope they've really cleared off and they're not hanging around outside waiting to get us, I say. Lucky job my dad's coming to collect us in the car. Hey, Ellie, Nadine and I were thinking, says Magda, coming over. We'll go home to my place, right? You won't want us sleeping over with you if you've got Dan. Ooh, am I sleeping here with Ellie then, says Dan, grinning. No, you are not. I guess you'll be tucked up with my little brother Eggs, which serves you right. No, Magda and Nadine, do come back with me, please. It'll be fun. And weirdly, it does turn out to be fun. Dad arrives dead on 12, and when the four of us thank Stacey, she's still being ever so gushingly grateful, and she gives me a hug, and then she gives Dan a hug too. Wow, says Dan, this is definitely my night. You certainly look as if you've been celebrating, says Dad, taking in Dan's dramatically stained t-shirt. Dan's the hero of the hour, says Magda. He fought all these skinheads to protect Ellie, says Nadine. Well, not exactly, I say. See, Ellie, all your friends appreciate me, says Dan. Come on, Nadine and Magda, I'll squeeze in with you two in the back. Ellie can sit in the front with her dad, then she'll maybe get all jealous. You wish, I say. When we get back home, Eggs wakes up, even though we try to be quiet, and he's ecstatic when he sees Dan. He runs to him, gives him a great hug and a slobbery kiss. When he realises Dan will be sharing his bed, he goes really bananas, leaping up and down until his pyjamas fall down around his ankles. Hey, no indecent exposure in front of the lady, says Dan, yanking his pyjamas into place and picking him up. Come on, little guy, let's go to bed. Anna has been great sorting out pillows and cushions and duvets and sleeping bags, so we've all got somewhere to sleep. I'm sorry about Dan arriving out of the blue, I whisper. It's okay. In fact, he was tremendously sweet, arriving with a battered bouquet of flowers and a crushed box of chocks. He practically went down on his knees to me to beg to stay here, almost as if he felt I was some utterly unreasonable ogress who had to be appeased. I wonder what gave him that idea, I say guiltily. Anyway, thanks, Anna. No problem. I like Dan. He's a sweet boy. And amazingly, Magda and Nadine think he is too. We stay awake for ages, whispering and giggling. I have to tell the entire Dan story right from the beginning, explaining how I embellished the original Dan into this super dishy hunk based on the fair boy I bumped into on the way to school. It's not really such a big deal telling them, though it maybe helps that we've all drunk several glasses of wine punch. It's dark too, so I can go as red as the wine and they can't see. Magda and Nadine say I'm seriously screwy, but don't act that surprised. Magda gets interested in the dream man. He's real, isn't he, Ellie? Is he really, really, really ultra tasty? Maybe I'll walk your way before school to see if I can spot him. Hands off you, I saw him first. But you've got the real Dan, says Nadine. She adds wistfully, he's obviously nuts about you. He's obviously nuts, full stop, says Magda. What's up with his hair, Ellie? I know. I thought old Greg was a bit dodgy, borderline anorak nerd, but Dan is star geek of all time. Though he is sweet, I must admit, says Magda. You can have a good laugh with him, I admit. Yeah, but what about a good snog, says Magda. I think of snogging Dan. Magda and Nadine are imagining it too. We all burst out laughing simultaneously and have to dive under our duvets or we'll wake everyone up. I don't surface until gone 11 in the morning. Magda and Nadine are still fast asleep. Magda's on her side, both arms wrapped around her pillow, her mouth in a sexy pucker. She is obviously snogging someone in her sleep. Nadine is lying on her tummy, her black hair a cloak across the pillow. I can't see her face at all, but I can hear little sucky sounds. I think she's sucking her thumb. I sit up and smile at my two friends, and then I pad off to the bathroom. I take my time getting washed and dressed because I want to look halfway decent. But when I get downstairs at last, there's no sign of Dan. Anna gives me a mug of coffee. Poor Dan. Eggs was wide awake at 6 o'clock and begging him to get up and play with him. Where are they now? And Dad? They've gone swimming. I don't know how Dan will manage for a costume. Your dad's old trunks will be far too big, and yet Egg's stuff is far too little. Maybe he'll just wear his underpants. Please, Anna, you're conjuring up an all too graphic image, I say, sipping coffee. So I take it you and Dan aren't going to be the romance of the century, says Anna. And if your dad and I wanted to go out tonight, say, and leave you two here in the house, you're not likely to start up any X-rated bouncing on the beds. I solemnly promise that Eggs will be the only one to bounce on the beds, I say. So you want Dan and me to babysit? Your dad did wonder. That's this jazz concert. There's this jazz concert up in town, and we could maybe have a meal out first. But it's a bit of a cheek asking you. You and Dan probably want to go out somewhere. You go. You and Dad, Anna. How are things with you two? Anna crosses her fingers. Things certainly seem okay when she and Dad go off together at 6. Anna is wearing her new skirt. Dad seems to appreciate it enormously. He gives her a little pat on the bum when he thinks I'm not watching. Yuck. Dad is a really sexist pig at times. He's offered to take her to an Italian restaurant so she can try out her newly acquired conversational skills on the waiters. This sounds a bit patronising if you ask me, but Anna seems happy enough. Love is blind. I am not in love. I see Dan all too clearly. Anna's washed his t-shirt for him so he's clean, but that's about the only positive thing I can say about his appearance. And the chlorine at the swimming pool has increased the scrubbing brush tendency of his hair. But so what? He's really quite good fun to hang around with. When he gets back from swimming and Magda and Nadine crawl out of bed at long last, the four of us play a crazy game of Scrabble until Eggs tips up the board accidentally on purpose because he can't bear not to join in too. We listen to my CDs for a while, and Magda and Nadine are a bit scornful because Dan isn't very hip in his musical tastes. But then we get cracking on some of Dad's 70s stuff, and Dan comes into his own. He does a brilliant Freddie Mercury imitation, prancing around the living room until we're all in stitches. And then we get going on ancient strutting stone stuff, and then right back to Elvis. Dan teaches Eggs to flip a quiff of hair, wiggle his hips. Then the boys say it's our turn, so I dig out my Beatles compilation. I sing, with a little help from my friends. With a little help, etc. And Nadine does her version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and Magda chooses All You Need Is Love. And then we all sing Hey Jude, over and over, and then Hello, Goodbye. Then Magda and Nadine say goodbye, and Dan and I watch Wallace and Gromit videos with Eggs. Eggs badgers me until I make him his own plasticine Wallace and Gromit. Dan tries to make stuff too, but his things go all hunched and lumpy, so he says they're aliens from outer space. So we all make plasticine aliens. I make my alien very thin with sticky up short hair and big ears. Dan laughs and Eggs plays with it so enthusiastically that the alien's legs fall off. Imagine your legs falling off, says Dan. And then he keels over onto the sofa, pretending his own have done just that. Eggs squeals and jumps on top of him. Come on, Ellie, Eggs yells. No thanks, I say. Eggs is still bouncing about, full of beans, when Dad and Anna set off for their night out. Anna's left all sorts of stuff in the fridge for tea, and Dad's given us a tenner in case we'd sooner go to McDonald's. We decide on the McDonald's. We've got no transport and it's a good half-hour's walk, but maybe it'll help tire eggs out at long last. I get just a tiny bit tense, wondering if there'll be anyone I know at McDonald's. But it's still early and it's mostly families. Dan pretends we're a family too, Ma and Pa and little Egbert, which makes Eggs chuckle. I hadn't realised you could play daft pretend games with boys. He's really great at it too. Nadine used to be good at imaginary games, but she won't do it so much now we're older, and Magda's never gone in for that sort of thing anyway. I see someone I do know on the way home. Well, I don't know him, though I've thought about him so much I feel as if I've known him all my life. I stare at him, and it's as if the real and the pretend are all mixed up for a moment. Then they separate out, and I'm with the real Dan, and this is the dream Dan, though he's certainly not called Dan, and it's even more unlikely that he ever dreams about me. He's with someone, not a girl, another boy, almost as good looking, but dark with blue eyes. Dream Dan's in black, the dark boy's in white. They look great together. And then I realise something. They are together. They're chatting and laughing, looking at each other. But just as they're going past, the dream Dan sees me. "Hi there," he says. "Hi," I say, smiling wistfully. The real Dan stares. "Do you know him?" he says when we're past. "Yeah, well, sort of. He's ever so good looking," says Dan. And he sounds wistful now. He peers around at them. "Is that his boyfriend?" "It looks like it," I say, sighing. "Are you Ellie's boyfriend?" Eggs asks Dan. "Definitely," says Dan. "Not even possibly," I insist. Dan isn't my boyfriend. Okay, he's fun, and I have a good time with him, and I can say all sorts of stuff to him, and though he's a hopeless nerd, he's also brave, and quick-witted, and imaginative, and it doesn't really matter 100% if he looks stupid. Anyway, I'm hardly some Pamela Anderson-type pin-up. He's not cool, but maybe the truly cool guy doesn't care if he's cool or not. But he's still not my boyfriend because I could never get romantic about Dan, not in a Romeo and Juliet kind of way. I'm not too fond, like Juliet, no true love passion. Although, we play Ma and Pa as we bath Eggs and put him to bed, which is a struggle and takes hours. Then we settle down in front of the telly with Coke and crisps. We chat and crunch companionably. We laugh at something daft on the video, and Dan rolls one way on the sofa and I roll the other way towards him. And guess what? We kiss. My first real kiss. And it's not at all the way I imagined it. I didn't crack up laughing. I liked it. Even though it's only Dan. Maybe because it's Dan. And that is the end of Girls in Love by Jacqueline Wilson. Hope you enjoyed that story, guys. I'll be back soon with lots more videos and stories on my channel. If you'd like to hit a like or subscribe to my channel, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.